Fine. Okay. So yeah, hello. My name is Alex Carot. I'm a professor in media computer science in Anhalt University of Applied Sciences, Germany, and I'm also a bass player, and I'm also the developer of SoundJack, which is a platform quite similar to Jacktrip. No surprise, because 2002 I was inspired by Jacktrip, but the whole story a little bit later. Okay, I have 30 minutes of time. I prepared a lecture which is way longer than that, so I skip through the first parts, or just roughly go through it. So I would have talked about the audio transmission path, which implies lots of several aspects: the natural path, electronic path, digital path, internet path. With all these stages, we could go through later, but each of these stages are being reflected within SoundJack. So everything that matters in terms of DSP, in terms of digital signal processing, is reflected in SoundJack. So including the jitter buffer here, the decoding, the double buffer of the sound card, the reconstruction process, and so forth. As most of you know, the cognitive aspects matter a lot, and the major two ones are the quality and the latency, of course. And in that regard, the most famous application is voice over IP, or classical conferencing, where we have latency thresholds of about 400 milliseconds according to the standard. And this is what people, if they're not musicians, typically consider as real time and as low latency in most cases. And here the quality requirements are at maximum 8 kilohertz a channel, because there they make a cutoff, because this is where voice is understandable. Video conferencing, same thing. However, there we also have synchronous audio and video. So in some cases, audio might be delayed because it has to be in sync with the video. But here in distributed music, we have a latency threshold which is almost 20 times lower. It resides at about 25 milliseconds. And in fact, in some cases, it is even way lower, to probably 10 and 15 milliseconds. So there are various interaction approaches I would talk about later. So we have the principle of simultaneousness. And the quality requirements are, of course, different. Here we want to have full range audio, basically everything up to 20 kilohertz. And with regard to synchronous audio video, this is a nice to have feature, but it is definitely not necessarily. So it could be out of sync and musicians would not complain. So this is the use case we have. We have the world, 2 rooms in the world. We have instruments in that room connected by the internet. And so where is the latency threshold? And in that sense, we carried out a number of experiments. And in order to verify in how far that threshold of 25 milliseconds holds true or not, and the outcome was very shocking, so to say, because we figured out that there is basically no clear threshold. It basically varies from musician to musician. So we came to the conclusion, what we called EDAL, the ensemble delay acceptance limit. It is an individual value, so it varies from musician to musician. It falls with increasing performance speed. Basically, the faster, the lower the acceptance threshold. It also falls with increasing note resolution. For example, if a bass player plays quarter notes, the acceptance threshold is way higher as if the bass player was playing 16th notes, for example. So that also has an impact regarding the style. That being said, there is no real clear threshold, but 25 milliseconds works out as a rough guide value. So this is what we can say. However, in some cases, it does not work out. In some other cases, it could be up to 60 milliseconds, but coming back to that later. Okay, and based on these things, I brought to life some interaction approaches. The first is the realistic interaction approach, where basically the latency is below 25 milliseconds, as if we were in the same room, and there we would have performance conditions as if we were in the same room. The next one is the master-slave approach. That is existence if the latency is way beyond the acceptance threshold at, for example, 150 milliseconds. And there it is still possible to perform, because if we divide the two sections into one master and one slave, the slave can perfectly play to what he or she receives from the master, but the master has, of course, a very bad time because he or she receives the signal back with a round trip latency. So that's the master-slave approach, which is not real musical interaction. A modified version of the master-slave is the laid-back approach, where latency is beyond the rhythmical acceptance threshold. However, if we put the rhythm section on one end and a solo section on the other end, a singer, for example, then the rhythm section can keep up with the timing, and the remote solo part is just a little bit laid back according to the latency. So he or she doesn't really sing or play laid back, but the network results in that laid back effect. We can play, and it's not really harmful. It's just a change of style.
I think for those who are familiar with Chris's work, I think he talks about the leader and the follower, which is basically the same idea.
It's the same like master slave, exactly, yeah. Then we have one more, it's the delayed feedback approach. I'm talking about all these approaches because they are all realized within SoundJack. This is why. For some of you, it might be already known, but just to sum it up quickly. We also have the delayed feedback approach. Here, it's also assumed that the one-way latency is too high for rhythmical interaction, but what is happening is that at least one person is delaying the own signal up to a certain amount. So it is sent out immediately, but the own feedback heard by the own side is delayed. So it's basically like playing a little bit in the future. So you hear your own signal later, and that way you can compensate the latency which is too high. And one way is depicted here. You can delay your own signal with a round trip latency, then you have perfect sync basically. However, you can also make the two sides delay the own signal by the one-way latency, or you can also move the offset to either one or the other side. This is what is also applicable. And the last approach here is what I call the latency accepting approach. This is what could be played in any situation because the music performed has no beat. So this is like new music, contemporary music, which has no metronome. So where you play phrases and where the precise timing and the micro timing has no significance. So this is basically music that could be performed under these conditions, and latency is not that crucial. And that being said, distributed music is a complex domain with various artistic and technological issues to overcome. And this is very important regarding the actual COVID-19 situation, where everybody tries to find the ultimate tool. The conclusion for me is that there is no ultimate way to go. And the applied technology and its configuration depends on the individual requirements. And there are so many people and so many target groups, and whoever decides what's possible for him or her is it's individual. So it really differs from person to person. Okay, in that regard, I developed SoundJack because I'm a bass player who has a passion for rhythm and blues, for funk music, and for everything that has to have pocket. That was my approach, and I wanted to realize that with people abroad. And I was inspired in 2002 by StreamBD. That was basically the first version of Jack Trip. And the first public SoundJack version was available in 2006. It changed many times in any regard. And since 2015, there's a separation of the core, of the SoundJack core engine and a browser GUI. So it basically can be controlled by any web browser. It offers peer-to-peer and server streaming. It also offers multi-channel up to 32 channels, including 3D audio support. It has low latency video, although it's still in beta, but it works pretty well on at least some machines. It will be debugged very soon. It also has a social media functionality and a specific hardware device, which we call the Fast Music Box. Yeah, coming back to COVID-19. Before COVID-19, we had 50 page views per day in average, which was fine, and I was happy to have a small but fine community. And well, you look at the graph, you can immediately tell where COVID-19 started. So from that point on, we had 1,500 page views per day, and people like went through the door. It's like the whole thing went through the ceiling, and I had no idea what's happening. Since then, we had 17,038 members. And it doesn't really stop. And yeah, we have to see what's the next step. Many people approach me with lots of feature requests, and there I really figured that there are so many different user profiles, and I really try to balance all these profiles and make the best out of it. But it's really not possible to make everybody happy. It's just impossible. But here, a quick introduction how it works. So we have once you logged into the portal and you have a user account, you go to the download section, and there you have the engine, which you drag into your applications folder, and you run it. And once you have done that, just look at this tiny little symbol in the dock up here. Once you see that XLR icon, then you know that the engine is running in the background. And if this is the case, you can go to, I pointed on here, the stage, which I call the stage. And once you enter the stage, you have to wait a couple of seconds every time. Then on the left, you see the engine with all the parameters, which are being reflected by this brief introduction I just held. And here on the right, we have the user list of users logged in at the same time. You will see different users depending on the group you pick here on the second select box from the top, because there's a group you could pick. And yeah, coming back to the fact that we can stream in peer-to-peer. Once you enter, you by default go into the public peer-to-peer mode. So everybody you can see here, you can easily connect to while hitting the on button on the right, after, of course, you have adjusted your proper sound in and outputs on the left side, picked the right channels, configured your own local volume, configured your sample buffer, configured your network buffer, if you want to use compression and all that stuff. But once you have done that, you will basically show up in the user list and are able to connect to others and see what's the latency you will get that will appear on the right of the on button once you have connected to it. We performed a network music performance with jazz celebrity Jamie Cullum in not last year, it was 2019 in June, right? And that was a huge success because it also worked out using a 5G network. So here we connected London with Bristol and Birmingham, and that even had an audience of 200 persons. And that was the very first high professional network music performance we performed with SoundJack. And that was a very good proof of concept that the whole thing works out pretty well. We could take a look afterwards if you want. Yeah.
We're going to be jamming over 5G.
Oh, do you hear?
You guys ready? Yeah. All right, Jacob. You know what to do. Well, my friends, see it's their appointed duty. They keep trying to tell me all you wanna do is use me. Ooh. But my answer, all that use me stuff. Oh, I wanna spread the news that if it feels this good getting used, you just keep on using me to use me up.
Okay, so that was just an extract of this about 90-minute performance, and that was a huge success. And even before COVID-19, so we did that, and we were kind of prepared for what then happened. Nevertheless, it's still a kind of shocking what's still going on, and right now it doesn't seem to become better, unfortunately. Okay, the SJC, this is what I call the core engine. It also works as a streaming server. So there is one binary for two applications. And if you want to use the SJC as a streaming server, you just run it with a different set of command line arguments, enter the server data into your user profile, and then the server will show up in the specific group. And then everybody can connect to that kind of server where everything will get mixed, and the mix is being streamed back. So this is the big advantage of the server, that there is only one in and one outgoing stream. However, the server has disadvantages because it takes an additional detour, and there are also additional server processing latencies. And in some specific cases, especially for fast rhythmical part, the server is a no-go. But it really depends on the music and the style you're playing. So here, this is a screenshot with grayed out information where I put the server in here. This is how it looks within the portal. Then we have the fast music box. This is basically a Raspberry Pi mini computer based installation, and it basically works as a replacement for a conventional laptop. You can access this machine with any smartphone. So what you just saw, the user list and everything, will be displayed on the smartphone, and the whole engine is running on that little smart device as a replacement for a computer. And for some users, this is a very interesting alternative because it is quite cheap, and we can support it better because then we know what is the hardware people are using, and not this whole range of Windows, OS 10, Linux, and whatever PCs, and that makes it easier. Yeah, coming back to the server, what I just explained, the SJC in server mode, this is a simple server. This is what we call it. We also have a complex server, which is the equivalent of what you call the hub server. And this is able to handle up to 60 connections or probably more. We have only done it with 20, and we're looking forward to do more tests very soon. And this is the technical concept, and we did that within Germany. So we placed this complex server in Frankfurt am Main, which is the logical center of Germany. And that really turned out that anybody in Germany has 12 milliseconds of latency to the server. And this is a very, very interesting use case, which works for choirs. But again, some have more, like 15, 16, up to 20 milliseconds. And you basically have to add up the latencies of every participant, which results in probably 40 or a little bit more of latency between the players. And that is, again, way too much for rhythmical fast interaction. But still a great option to get 50 people playing together. And in some cases, it makes really sense. And this is another additional drawing of a more complex server where we can basically connect several servers together via the AVB technology, just by the way. And here is the screenshot of the matrix mixer we have. The matrix mixer is something any participant can use and can control the individual data of every participant playing on the server. So it's very important to adjust the levels. And with the left fader, you can adjust your own feedback that is coming back from the server. With the right one, you can adjust the levels any other participant will hear. Furthermore, we have the low delay video component. As I said, it's still in beta, but I'm going to debug it very soon. It is definitely not working as well as what you know from Zoom and all the other high fidelity video conferencing systems. However, it is really tuned in terms of latency. And you can see the millisecond values here. So in that mode, it only introduces 3 milliseconds of video of latency. In this mode, 10. So there are various codes, various parameters to be adjusted. This is actually the whole philosophy of SoundJack, to provide the whole set of possible parameters in order to let the user decide the best way how to adjust the engine, and video is also one part of it. Yes, and the last thing regarding the uh, research outcome of the last 4 years actually is this year. It's what we call the LED cube or holo cube. It's a matrix of several LEDs, and these are glass panels, and they are stacked um, either on top or side by side. And this way you could get a cube in which you could illustrate any kind of desired video data. Of course, the resolution is not high, actually not high enough, but the LEDs can be triggered with lowest possible latencies, and this leads to way lower latency than any classical computer screen. And that being said, with this way, we could probably put a conductor into that cube and display the movements within that cube. However, this is the only part that is not going into the official product. This is pure R&D, and we are working with that in the lab. Okay, I think yeah, almost right on time. That is what I wanted to show you regarding SoundJack. If you want, we could now go into the portal and check out some functions if you want. It's basically up to you how we shall proceed. Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, that's great, Ben. Yeah,
Alex.
Alex, right. I would love to actually explore some of the beginning of your presentation sometime. You know, maybe you can come back. But are there any questions for Alex?
Yeah.
How are you?
Go for it, Cynthia.
Oh
Nice.
no, hey Alex, so great to see you.
Yeah,
So many
long time no
years
seen, by the way.
ago, yes. I did have a question. I was playing around on the website, and I navigated away from the stage to look at members and different things, and so I think I lost connectivity when I did that. So we have to open a new page. Stay on the stage and open a new page to get.
Yeah, you know, the background is this. The stage and the display of users is realized by a WebSocket, and the WebSocket is bound to the actual tab. And when you move away from the tab, the WebSocket is closed automatically. I understand that is a usability issue. I currently don't know really how to solve it, but I haven't put it on high priority so far. So users typically, when they are in session, shouldn't leave the stage.
Right. So open a new tab if we want to
Okay,
go somewhere else inside the website.
You can basically use it. Yeah, exactly. That's possible.
Right.
Simply leave the stage on, otherwise you would be thrown out the session.
And quickly, another question. When we're doing real-time mixing, I have found that it's really important for people to be patient, to allow 3-4 seconds for the changes in the settings to take effect. Otherwise, I think, oh, that doesn't work. So it's really important. Somewhere in there in your documentation, maybe to say, allow time, or is it different for SoundJack where it's really fast?
You can change the settings in real time. So it basically takes the technical background is this. I have sequence numbers in the audio packages, and with every 0 packet, it basically goes up from 1 to 128. And once it reaches the first one, it adjusts the receiver according to the change on the sender side. So it is kind of instant change of parameters.
Okay, so there's no 2 or 3 second delay for the changes to take effect. Okay.
No, it could take maybe 50 milliseconds, but that's it.
Pretty quick. All right, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Alex, I had some questions about video. So I've been using SoundJack since August. I'm part of that graph that everybody started hanging out on SoundJack and using it. The most impressive, and it's an amazing platform. The most impressive part of it to me is the fact that you're tackling the video problem, the video in sync with low resolution.
So have you actually tried it?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Not many people do. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I with mixed success, which you won't be surprised to hear. It sounds
Yep.
like, but the promise of it, seeing the mouth move and hearing the sound in such low latency is so deeply compelling, especially because I like to sing barbershop, and
Yeah.
there's no conductor, and we all look at each other's mouths, and it's just very important to see each
Ye-
other.
Right.
I'm so surprised though about the LED box being maybe a way to approach that. Did you create that because computer displays literally have too much latency, that's a problem for video?
Yes, that was the motivation for doing this. See, everything I do aims to achieve like the absolute maximum of what's possible. And this is why, well, it started as a fun project. We thought, hey, why don't we build a hologram? And for some reason, we were able to put that work package into the last research project. And that's why, because most displays, they have an inherent capture display latency of, well, at least 100 milliseconds, which you don't really notice because for mouse movements and stuff, it doesn't really matter. Of course, I am aware of the fact that there are some optimized gaming screens and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but even these displays, they can't compete with what we have done with this cube. But nevertheless, for good reason, we optimized the video as good as we can, and then it's up to the user to use a screen as good as possible, or actually a graphics card as good as possible. That also has a huge impact. And well, the HoloCube is an option, but it's still it's really base R&D. So
Right.
I myself count on the video solution that you were just talking about.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to tackling that all the way. I wondered if you've done anything about tracking metadata of mouth movements and head movements with facial recognition software, maybe that runs locally, and sending that because it's much less data than video data.
It's on schedule, but I'm kind of freaking out due to so many tasks I have going on side by side. However, I really want to approach video very soon, and I think within the next 2 weeks I will start doing that. And that is something, reduce the data, because for musicians we basically want to have the keying moments and the movements, and probably some what's the English term, like mimic, so the expressions, facial expressions. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, and you don't necessarily need the full range of image data.
Even if it was just a light up metronome, it would still be nice to not have every metronome or rhythmic element that unifies the group be audible, because we're trying to maybe record that audio or whatever, but something, that LED box is so compelling. Anyway, thank you for tackling the video side of it and exploring that area. I don't think anyone else really has.
I don't think so either. But we'll see. Yeah.
We have a question from Ben. We have a raised hand. It's been raised for a long time.
Thanks, Bunny. Hey, Alex, that was a fantastic presentation, and love all the work that you've done. Just curious about SoundJack. I've just signed up and haven't explored it, but I'm curious about the peer-to-peer versus the hub mode in comparison with something like JackTrip, which I'm more familiar with. How is SoundJack different or similar to the current modes in JackTrip?
I actually would say they're almost the same. The basic principle, as I said, it's no surprise. I was really inspired 2002 by the principle. It's basically grabbing an audio buffer from the sound card, send it out immediately, and buffer it as low as possible on the receiving end, and that's basically it. And all the rest is usability and some minor details. And this is the same approach JackTrip and SoundJack have, and everybody knows about this. And this is the same way I document stuff as well. So the difference is, in my opinion, not really there, apart from some minor details which I'm not aware, because I can't really use a JackTrip intensively because of the stuff I have to do on SoundJack.
Yep. And sorry, just to clarify, it's all peer-to-peer based. Like I can see on the stage there's multiple people. So if you've got 10 people connected, is all their audio coming to you and sending back, or is there two different modes in SoundJack, or is
it's supposed to be as versatile as possible. I have these groups, as I said. So if you don't want to be on this public peer-to-peer group, you basically create your own group, and then you only see others who are also part of that group. That's one thing, and then you can connect peer-to-peer to them. But if you have a mass server, this is how I call it, or if you have the simple server also attached to your account, it will also show up in that user list, and then everybody can connect to that server in the same way as if they would to a peer-to-peer client, or they could connect to the server in addition to peer-to-peer connections. So both is also possible at the same time. You don't have to switch. It's basically up to you what you want to connect to.
Cool, thanks.
For example, yesterday we had a session in which we figured out that one peer became very unstable due to jitter and too much traffic in the evening here. And then I said, you know what, it's becoming very unstable. Please connect to the server. And she connected to the server so we could hear her as well. And that was brilliant because it took a different route. It was a little higher latency, but we could still do the session with her without interruptions.
Great,
Okay.
thanks.
How many people have SoundJack installed? Can we raise our hands in the GUI of Zoom? I know Tovar tried.
I enabled him manually.
Oh, right. So we have, okay, Tom,
Cynthia, and Tovar. So and Ben, or yeah, let's do a quick connection. Do you want to fire up a server and share your screen so we can see your hub server in action?
Okay, one second.
Please tell us how to do this.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I'll certainly have to leave Zoom audio for this to work, I'm pretty sure.
Well, let's see. That's sometimes I'm surprised. So
Yeah, you hear yourself twice.
Yeah. The right, not leave the session, but put off the audio. That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Next to the mute icon, if you click on the arrow, there's the choice towards the end of the menu, leave computer audio.
So if you still see my screen here, on the left you have here several groups. Of course, I'm in several of them.
Sorry, can you share your screen with SoundJack? It's just got your presentation up at the moment.
Oh, it's not IC. Okay.
Yeah, maybe you should share your desktop.
Share the application, yeah. Share the browser.
Okay, 1 second. So you see my video only at the moment, right?
Oh, it's just sharing.
It's the last page of your
okay, got it. Okay.
This is the first step to getting connected. So please enter soundjack.eu. You have to go.
Just stop sharing and reshare, perhaps.
Yeah.
Wait, yes. Here it is. I don't. Yeah.
You're
still there, everybody? Okay,
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's reshare.
Okay.
Bildschirm freigeben. That's what it's called here. Okay. Okay, take the whole desktop.
Yeah, now we see it.
Okay, so when you enter SoundJack, you are here on the home, and then you enter the stage. And once you've done that, of course, assuming that here the engine is running, otherwise it will fail, give you a message that the engine is not running. But if you see this XLR icon, everything's fine. And now you can see the left are the settings, and on the right is the user list. And we are in the peer-to-peer group. First of all, this is not the right, I want to use my Scarlett. Oh, the question is, can I use the Scarlett at the same time? I don't know. I just in case, I use my MacBook Pro microphone, and then, okay. And then you see the level meter peaking. Output is this way. Okay, fine. If you want, you can loop back your own signal here, but most people don't do that. And also, what's important.
Watch out, because MacBook Pro microphone, and you're going to create a feedback loop with these two.
A strong feedback loop, exactly.
Yeah, the loop back, yeah.
Yeah.
Finger on the trigger there.
Yeah. So this is why this should be set to 0 in most cases. And by the way, it remembers all the settings. So if you dragged it to 0, it will stay on 0 the next time I enter the stage. Okay, so let's go from public peer-to-peer to public mass servers. Okay, everybody there?
Yeah.
So, and if we wanted to connect peer-to-peer, we should just hit the on button on the right of the players, but don't do that now, please. Instead of that, please click the on button of the mass server Virginia.
Wow.
Okay. I see. Okay. My level's coming back. So I'm dragging it to 0 because I don't want to hear the others now here. And the good thing is that we have a mass server matrix mixer, which I'm opening now, and you can see it here. So I'm where I am. Wait, yeah, the problem is still that it has to be improved in terms of usability and design. But once you know how to use it, it is very simple. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 channel strips. So these are the first 8 channels. For the next 8 channels, we have another mixer to open up. And on this fader is sending back your own signal. So if you want to hear your own loopback signal from the server, you just drag this one to 0. And with this fader, you adjust the level all the other people hear you with. And on the bottom, you see what is being sent out. This is the mix, which is sent out to every other user. So yeah, these are the first 8 channels, and we are all connected just fine, I would say. So at least I can't really tell that that the connection failed. I would say, yeah, we have 10 people. We have 10 people connected because I can see that by port 50,060 it has increased that, but these are details I don't want to bother you with. And if, okay, but we are 10, so that means the second mixing server is active. And that's, yeah, and here we can see it. So the first 2 of the second one are also peaking. And in the third line, this is the last info for you, you see the mix of the first matrix mixer. This is why this third line is peaking, going back to the first. And here you see on the first mixing server, you see the second line peaking because this is the input you get from the second mixer. It's a little bit tricky, but once you know how to use it, it is quite effective and powerful, and it's working pretty well already. However, we haven't done it with 60 people already, but this is what we want to do very soon. And if you want to participate in these sessions, this is my request to you, you are very, very welcome, and that would be great fun for me to figure out. And I think for you too, especially in, well, in comparison to what the hub server does. And yeah. Does that help, or do you want to see anything else?
Is the mixer in the same order as this list that we see right now? Like I'm number 2, am I number 2 in the faders?
No. It would be great if it was, but for this I have to find a solution because it becomes very difficult to identify.
And I'm sorry, where was the mixer?
That's the URL to enter in an additional tab.
Is that for anyone to access or just the
Yeah, just do it.
host?
Just do it. Just open another tab and enter this IP address and you will have the mixer as well. However, I recommend not keeping it open for too long because there's quite a lot of data being transmitted and that might probably mess up your audio connection. So it basically depends on your bandwidth if it is if it's a wise decision to leave the mixer on or not. So everybody, if you could do it.
And how do we hear the other people in SoundJack? I can only hear you in SoundJack.
I think they don't talk. This is why.
Do we have to use that on button? Do we press the green on button to turn everyone on?
No, I can tell that 10 of you have already done that with the mass servers, and I can tell that some people are peaking here. So this is the noise I can see in the mixer. And if they only talked, you would definitely hear them. So let me increase the levels to the maximum and make sure that you increase the level of your mixer as well. Wait. I don't hear anything yet because I have the headphones on where I hear the Zoom session.
Yeah, I can't hear anyone through. I just hear you through SoundJack. I don't hear anyone else. I'm not sure if everyone can hear everyone, but I'm certainly only hearing you in SoundJack.
Okay. Is that the same for anybody?
Oh, there we go. I've got it now.
Yeah.
Ben, you're.
Did you hear Cynthia?
Yeah, sorry, I turned the audio down of the server, so I didn't.
You mean the volume fader, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was hearing double audio because of Zoom, so that was my fault.
No, take it easy. Oh, this is you have no idea what people approach me with, so that was a nice fault. Some others can't even open a DMG file, for example. Anyways, I don't want to complain, but I'm sometimes really freaking out due to what people approach me with. And please, some people might consider this as rude, but at one point I decided to put on these 10 SJ commandments on top, where I'm explicitly saying that if you want to be helped, you have to be nice, otherwise you risk to be thrown out. And since then, the tone got nicer.
I think that's great. That's a good place to start.